Hi, Ashlie Johnson here with Brooke Human Resource Solutions, back to provide you with some tips and tricks to keep you HR compliant. Today, I'd like to talk about disciplinary action and termination and how you can use disciplinary action to provide a positive result with your employees. I think the first thing to talk about when we talk about discipline is the importance of clear policies. You need to follow your own policies, so make sure that you're reviewing the ones that exist every year. Ask yourself these questions. Do you have a good handbook? Do you follow it? And is it accurate to how you want to manage your employees? I think if those answers are no, you want to reach out to someone like myself to make sure that you are creating a good, compliant handbook that has policies that your management team can manage to effectively. When we talk about discipline, one of the biggest factors is consistency. The things that can get you in trouble with the law are being inconsistent when it comes to this process. So make sure that you have a documented process and that you're following it. An employer must ensure that disciplinary process is used consistently between employees. Similarly situated employees should receive similar penalties for similar offenses. The inverse is also true. Major differences in situations or circumstances can justify very different penalties. An employer conducting a disciplinary investigation must use the same investigative process, whether they're investigating the CEO or an intern. So if you have a process, you need to follow it. And if you don't have a process for investigations, now would be a good time to create one. The disciplinary result from any investigation then needs to be proportional to the conduct and in line with discipline that's been issued in the past. Failure to be consistent calls into question the fairness of the process, and evidence of inconsistency is extremely powerful when it comes to employees who want to bring an action against the employer on the basis of discrimination, whistleblowing, wrongful termination. So you need to make sure that you don't let bad behavior slide with one employee, but not with another. Another important factor when we talk about discipline is communication. A common error many employers make when they're administrating progressive discipline is neglecting to warn an employee of the consequences of further unacceptable conduct or performance at each stage of the disciplinary process. While there are plenty of situations otherwise, it's often the case that a single disciplinary action is really not going to be egregious enough to warrant a termination. However, continued disregard for company policies or expectations can accumulate into something more serious. So by making it clear to an employee what the consequences will be for failure to correct poor behavior and communicating that clearly, if the employee is eventually terminated, the employee would have a difficult time saying that they didn't know what was expected of them or argue that they were wrongfully terminated. If one of the steps in your progressive disciplinary process is a verbal warning, that's fine. Still document that verbal warning. So have the conversation with the employee, then follow up with an email. If you don't use email, texts are okay. I don't love them, but they are a useful tool in today's world, so it's understandable. But contact them, say, this is my understanding of our conversation. These are the expectations and these are the consequences. Is that your understanding as well? And have them respond, yes, that they understand. That's good documentation that you've had the conversation, they've understood, and that they understand what the consequences are. Even if you don't do that step, still keep a written record of all of the disciplinary interactions that you have with an employee. Don't make it difficult on yourself. A quick note in a OneNote page with the employees, all their information, right? Every time they have a disciplinary issue, you just jot it down on that date. If it's a notebook with a page with the employee's name on the top and all the different times that something's happened, whatever your method of record keeping is, it doesn't really matter. It just matters that it exists. If an employee were to later allege discrimination or wrongful termination, if the employer can point to those records showing that the employee was treated fairly, they were provided with opportunities to improve performance or behavior, but failed to do so, that's a great weapon. I would say further, memories fade over time, and sort of oral testimony from a year or two ago doesn't hold much water when it comes to defending yourself in court against a claim. Um, Even if an employer did progressive discipline, right, they did the process correctly, if it's not written down, it might as well have not happened. Keeping records also helps you to ensure that your disciplinary process is metered out consistently. So if you have a document that says this is what happens each time there's a disciplinary infraction, that's going to help you, right, to make sure that you're following that path for each employee. I think it's really important to talk about follow-up when we talk about progressive discipline. Scolding an employee, but then never sort of coming back around with them to say either, hey, good job, you've corrected that behavior that I had to scold you on, or hey, employee, I see that this is still happening. This is still a challenge for you. How can I help? Help me understand what's going on with you. Why are you not able to meet these expectations? That follow-up is going to be really important to drive employee engagement and also make sure that you are sort of completing the process. I think when you follow up with good progressive discipline, there's two options that are going to happen. One is that the employee is going to perform better. They're going to reach their peak performance, or you're going to have to effect a termination, but you have a much less likely opportunity for them to come back and make any kind of allegation against you. Lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about carrots and sticks when it comes to discipline. Um, I think of discipline as an opportunity to offer both rewards and consequences to your employees. Is there a behavior that you want the employee to change? You know, going to the down the road of termination isn't always easy these days. Good employees are hard to find. So if you can find other means to allow the employee to self-discipline, to change behaviors on their own because it's something that they want to do, you're going to have a much better likelihood of being able to keep your good employees on. I'll give you an example. A client of mine is closed the week between Christmas and New Year's. They pay their employees for that week. They were having a lot of challenges with attendance. So at the beginning of the year, we implemented a program that was basically a point system for attendance. And should the employee reach a certain number of points on that scale, they are no longer eligible for that week of payment between the holidays. Now, that week of payment, or especially around that time of year, right, is very valuable to the employees. So they self-regulate now and keep track of their attendance because they don't want to have too many points and lose that payment. It's vastly improved their attendance issues, and it was a really easy thing to implement. So think about the benefits, the perks, the bonuses that you might offer to your employees, and think about how you could bring those into your disciplinary process. So it's not just a 3 strikes, you're terminated kind of situation, but rather a couple of strikes here, you don't get this. A couple of strikes there, this is a consequence. And as long as it's something that the employee really values, they will self-regulate. I hope that this has been helpful. Please do dig into your disciplinary processes, make sure that you're doing it compliantly, and protect yourself from potential liability. This is Ashlie Johnson with Brooke Human Resource Solutions. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.